Matt, first of all, I just wanted to thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to talk with me today. I am super excited to do this employee spotlight based on the work that you have done at SSAI. My first question that I wanted to ask you was, what drew you to SSAI, and how does the company's mission resonate with you personally?
So I came over to SSAI with the SESTA contract transition in December of 2000. I had actually started work at Goddard back in 1989 with another small company called STX, which is similar in size and mission to SSAI, and they were doing work on calibrating ozone instruments. So I stayed with that work. That small company got bought by Hughes STX, and then Hughes got bought by Raytheon. So by the time of the transition of CESDA, I was officially working for a very large company, which was one of the differences that happened coming over to SSAI. And so something I've really appreciated from SSAI has been the personal nature of the company and the fact that they're committed to providing the best support for the customers. I've seen it, in my own work. I've seen it with colleagues in the work that they do. And I think that's, a key thing because the work that we do has gone on for decades in some cases. And so you have deep relationships with the customers and they have to believe in what you're doing to feel good about what we're giving them.
Absolutely. I think, Matt, that was very well said. And I'm so glad to hear that you've had such a tremendous experience at SSAI. I know I can definitely speak on behalf of the fact that since I've been employed at the company for the last almost 8 months or so, it's just been an incredible experience because there's a true family feel because you get to know your managers, you get to know your company executives, which is wonderful. And, there's this true bond of connection that comes with it. And, that's definitely something that's very important for a company to have in order to be successful. And just as a side note, when you said that you started in 2000, no offense, I was 4 years old at the time. I was born in 96.
Oh, that's okay. I totally understand that at this point. I've had other experiences with that kind of thing.
That's awesome. But thank you so much, Matt, for sharing about your experiences with SSAI and how the company's mission resonates with you personally. My next question I wanted to ask you was, what factors have contributed to your decision to stay at SSAI, and how does the company support your professional growth and development?
Staying with SSAI for me, I've been fortunate because I've worked in an area that had a lot of stability. The ozone work that I first started doing in 1989 is actually something that NASA supports as a result of congressional mandate. And so the knowing that the work is going to keep going, this is the work we do looking at these ozone instruments is part of a long running program that goes back to the 1970s in the case of people at NASA that we support. And so that work, we know that it's going to continue. It's evolved through some different contracts as we've gone, even within SSAI, the ozone work's migrated to and been part of different contracts over time. But having that stability has been, certainly it's been a reason why I stayed because the work has stayed active here. But for me, a big additional support from the company has been the opportunity to continue pursuing independent research, specifically through, working with NASA grants. This is something that I was able to start doing with my previous company, that they had a policy of allowing people to go out and pursue some NASA money related to the kind of things that we were doing, and they would actually support that. And SSAI has been a big help in making that happen and continuing to make that happen. First, by helping us bring over funding that we had, Rich Sabula, who I worked with for many years, we had a grant at the time we came over with CESTA, and SSAI was happy to help bring that over and get those dollars transferred so that we could continue the work. But then as we've gone on, the support that's both just the practical side of it, the fact that we have an office that's willing to take care of the paperwork of submitting the financial requirements. I mean, one of the things that people don't always realize about the grants is that officially the company ends up submitting a proposal. You know, I may be the PI, but the company actually has to prepare it and sign off and do certain things. So we've had very good support for that for a long time. But also just the emotional side of the fact that they are so supportive of the work, that they're willing, they encourage people to pursue that and, you know, to take advantage of it. I did have exposure to a different experience because when first as the contract ended and that changed hands and SSAI did not keep it, I was interviewed by people with the new company about trying to come over to work for them. And one question I had for them was, well, how do you deal with people who have grant money? And they had no good answer for that. It was clearly not something that they were comfortable with and had a way to deal with. And so I'm doubly happy that SSAI was able to find a way to set up what became the LAS contract and went on through successors, but let me stay with SSAI and continue to do that kind of work.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible, Matt. I really appreciate that in-depth analysis in terms of what made you stay at SSAI. And I liked the vocabulary word that you mentioned about stability, because that's definitely important for any company as a whole. And I know definitely over the last couple of years, as I'm sure you can agree, and we all can agree with the COVID-19 pandemic, that we had, there was a lot of instability amongst everybody around the world. And, you know, we just didn't know what was going to happen on a day-to-day basis. We weren't quite sure if we were going to, you know, come back in person, you know, for our work. In April 2020, everyone's lives changed. But in relation to, you know, SSAI, we saw a lot of innovation that came with that. Even though we were virtual and we worked our way back to in-person, there was a lot of innovation and a lot of critical thinking, but also collaboration and teamwork, which is very key. And, you know, that is definitely something that I have seen throughout my experiences at SSAI. And whenever there is a transition, there definitely is, you know, clarity involved because all the employees will be able to know and understand what's going on, and then they'll be able to adjust to it. So, I really appreciate you sharing your experiences about what made you stay at SSAI and about the previous company that you worked for as well. And one of my final questions I wanted to ask you was, and this was about your work. Your current work at SSAI, it encompasses a fascinating range of atmospheric phenomena, from polar mesospheric clouds to solar UV variability and even the stratospheric ozone, like you just briefly touched on. Could you share a significant discovery or breakthrough you've made in your research at SSAI and how it has contributed to our understanding of atmospheric science?
So something that I'm, you know, particularly proud of in terms of the work that I've done has been to work with colleagues on long-term changes in what are called polar mesospheric clouds, and I'll use the term PMCs to make it simple. For people who might not be aware, these clouds are often called noctilucent clouds by people who see them from the ground because they're only visible after sunset or before sunrise, when the sun's below the horizon and lights up the ice clouds at very high altitude. They only appear in the summertime, northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere, usually at higher latitudes, beyond 50 degrees, and they're about 80 kilometers or 50 miles up in the air. Because they're at a region of the atmosphere that's very cold and very little water, they're very sensitive to other factors in the atmosphere that might be affecting how often they appear, whether they're changing over time. So people looking from the ground have seen these clouds since the 1880s and have wondered whether there were long-term patterns, either changes, a steady increase with time, what we call a trend, or changes with solar activity. But the problem that from the ground becomes you're looking from, people with different locations. They don't always have the same weather. They're not always looking at the same clouds. And so it's hard to really be sure if you can put together a long-term story that you have, good confidence in. So I've worked with colleagues from the University of Colorado and Naval Research Laboratory since about 2001 on taking data actually from satellite instruments that measure ozone and looking at those data in a way that you can identify the polar mesospheric clouds. The advantage there becomes that these measurements are taken as part of the normal operations. We don't have to ask for anything special. And there's a long record of these instruments that overlaps in time and actually goes back to 1978. So now we have a data set that at this point we've combined for a single composite record that has a 45-year duration from 9 different instruments. And we can look at that to determine, are there long-term trends and do we have responses to solar activity? And the answer actually is yes in both cases. There are modest long-term trends, and those long-term trends support the idea of climate change that we're looking for in the lower atmosphere, because the way that atmospheric physics works, heating in the lower atmosphere actually gives you cooling in the upper atmosphere, which lets you form more ice crystals, which gives you more and brighter PMCs. So the story all fits together. It's not something we would use as a single piece of evidence for climate change, but it matches up with what we expect to see. The magnitude is consistent with what people have been predicting for changes in temperature. And it's something that we'll be able to continue because the instruments that a team from SSAI currently works with, called OMPS, the Ozone Mapping and Profiling Suite, will continue to make these measurements for the next 15 to 20 years. So we'll be able to extend this record and look further at what's going on.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible, Matt. And I loved how you also mentioned in your response about wanting to tell the story. And I think that's definitely very important, whether it's a short-term discovery or a long-term discovery. You definitely want your audience to be able to see, what's exciting about this. And just hearing from what you've been saying and what you've been describing, especially since it goes all the way back to 1978, it definitely makes me excited, and it makes me want to learn more about it. And, being able to see what additional research is going to be done in like the next 10, 20, or like even 30 years or so, that's going to lead to many more important scientific discoveries. So I'm just super excited, Matt, by the work that you are doing and your colleagues are doing at SSAI. And Matt, I just wanted to thank you so much for joining me today, and again, taking time out of your very busy schedule to talk with me and to do this employee spotlight. You are truly a rock star employee who is really making an impact and a difference globally, and everybody is going to be very fascinated by the work that you are doing. Please definitely keep us informed about the continued great work and discoveries that you and your team are going to make with atmospheric phenomena. We can't wait to see it.
All right, you're welcome. Thanks for the interest.